The reading for today is from Dr. Maulana Karanga. He says, "For these principles are not just words we speak, but commitments of the heart and mind that undergird and inform what we feel and think about ourselves, each other, and the world. They are values that express what is important to us, what we hold as priorities, and thus the arc and ground of our self-understanding and self-assertion in the world. And thus, they express the human possibilities open to us in our ongoing efforts to free ourselves and be ourselves and constantly create good in the world."
Today, great song for today, and welcome to those of you who may have just arrived in the sanctuary. The theme for the month of December is I Celebrate the Holy Holidays. And I really love that we are taking the time this month to celebrate some of the other holidays besides just Christmas. Because I believe that it really affords us an opportunity to go beyond, our normal blessing of the faith traditions to an even greater understanding of some of the principles and practices and rituals that they, hold very dear to them. So my talk title today is Kwanza, Unity and Community. How many people, is there anyone that celebrates Kwanza regularly here? Does anybody know very much about Kwanza? Yay, you are in the right place today. You are in the right place today. So Kwanza is not a religious holiday. It is a week-long secular holiday observed by many African Americans from December 26th through January 1st. Now, the week-long celebration could include things like songs, dance, African drumming, storytelling, poetry reading, and on December 31st they have a huge feast. So, and the feast is called Karamu. Kwanzaa, as we know it, originated in the United States in 1966. And while it is mostly celebrated in the United States, Kwanzaa celebrations are also popular in Canada, in the Caribbean, and in other parts of the African diaspora. Kwanzaa is modeled after the first harvest festivals or celebrations in Africa. The meaning of the name Kwanzaa actually comes from the Swahili phrase, Matunda ya Kwanza, which means first fruits. So that's where that came from. Kwanzaa was created by, you heard his voice in the reading today. It was created by Dr. Maulana Karanga, who was a professor and chairman of Black Studies at California State University in Long Beach, California. It was created as a way to bring African Americans together as a community and to assist them to reconnect with their African roots and heritage. Kwanzaa was created by Dr. Karanga out of the turbulent times of the 1960s, right after the 1965 Watts riots, as a way for African Americans to celebrate community, to celebrate family, to celebrate culture, their culture and their heritage. Dr. Karanga said that his purpose for establishing Kwanzaa was to give blacks an alternative to the existing holidays and to give them an opportunity to celebrate themselves and their history rather than to simply imitate the practices of the dominant society. It was not created to replace their own religions, nor to replace their religious holidays, but really as an opportunity to really to talk about and to celebrate and honor the 7 principles of their African heritage. Now, the celebration of Kwanza acknowledges these 7 principles. So every day, a different principle is talked about and is given, and they, in their celebrations, they have an opportunity to talk about the principle, to share its meaning, and to talk about how that shows up in their lives for them, how they bring forward that principle into their own individual lives. In general, there are 7 Kwanzaa candles. You can see them here in the candle holder called a kinara. There are 3 red ones, a black one, and 3 green ones. Now, the black candle is a celebration of being black, of the unique and special qualities that each person brings to the whole of the community or to the whole of a particular family. The green candles are vision candles, and they are candles of hope and dreams and promises for the future. The red candles are candles of struggle, and they are the candles of the past that represent the past. They are candles that are the color of blood and candles that are the color of courage. Now, all 7 candles assist African Americans to remember their long struggles against injustice, their struggles against unfairness, and to make a promise to each other that they will continue to work together in support of justice, in support of freedom, in support of really being able to be all that they are. So the 7 principles are umoja, or unity, kochichakalia, say that one fast a couple times, kochichakalia, or self-determination, ujima, or collective work and responsibility, ujama, or cooperative economics, nia, or purpose, kumba, or creativity, and imani, or faith. Now, while Kwanzaa clearly is not on the tip of the tongues of the people in this room this morning, or at the tip of my tongue in being able to say all of these different words, but the 7 principles are for really building family and community are universally relevant to all of us. And we don't have to be African American in order to be able to learn or to apply these principles in our everyday lives. And so today we're going to take a little bit more of an in-depth look at the 7 principles of Kwanzaa and see how we can apply them to ourselves and to our lives. So the first principle is unity. It represents, we'll light these. So the first principle is unity. And it represents, perhaps we will, yes. It represents unity of family, of community, of nation, and of race. If there's a principle that we ever need more than we need a principle right now in this moment, it is unity. When our news feeds are filled with racism and bigotry and bickering and fighting and unspeakable atrocities, it is nearly impossible to retain a sense of this idea of unity. So the first day of Kwanzaa reminds us that unity is a choice that we can make, each of us, each and every single one of us can make every day, day in and day out. It is a choice. The principle of oneness or unity is, in fact, the foundation of our teaching. And it is a spiritual truth that is held by many faith traditions across the world. The purpose of our teaching and of those particular faith traditions around this idea of unity is that through our life's journeys and lessons that we will become aware of the illusion of separation and to be able and to more aware of, to know and to understand our own divinity, and to really have an experience, a mystical experience of our union with everything that there is. Now, experiencing unity involves seeing ourselves in everything and in everyone. So the invitation is to choose to treat everything and everyone as though they were an extension of ourselves, because in truth, that's what they actually are. There's really only one of us here. Whatever choices that we make and whatever actions that we take, we're really making those choices and taking those actions unto ourselves. So the underlying truth is that whatever crosses our path, whatever or whoever crosses our path, is part of ourselves and is something that we actually need to see or to meet that day. Someone that assists us to become our highest and best self. Perhaps not always in the way we want them to or we would like them to, or for that thing to show up, but it's there to assist us to become our highest and best. So the invitation is to greet whatever crosses our path, whomever crosses our path, with love and respect, and to be willing to give and to receive. The second principle is determination. Now, determination, this principle invites us to define ourselves, to name ourselves, to create for ourselves, to speak for ourselves. Far too often, we allow ourselves and our lives to be determined or led by other people or by things outside of ourselves. So this principle reminds us to develop and to use our own voices. Now, since we're a spiritual center, it's going to come as no surprise that the way that we can discover our own unique voice is through spiritual practices. So the way to become aware and awaken to our right and perfect form of self-expression is through meditation. The invitation is to get quiet enough to listen to that which knows, to listen to that which is seeking to be expressed through us. We can really literally enter into the quiet with an invitation to that divine wisdom that is within us to reveal to us our right and perfect form of self-expression. When we ask, it is said, right? When we ask, believing that the answers are available and open to receive them, then the answers will be there. We will be able to hear them. We will be able to receive them. The invitation is to let our prayers be prayers of alignment and clarity and divine right order and action, to participate in the process of visioning and to reverently listen to the wisdom of the divine download, to listen to the music that opens our hearts and brings us to our knees and allows us to be vulnerable enough to let go of our own ideas and the demands of other people, and to really stand powerfully in the question, what is mine to express? What is my unique, authentic voice? What I know about this authentic voice is that it occupies the space that we were created to occupy, that it defines that space, and that it also it allows us to really understand and then to step into the unique value that we are capable of contributing. What I know about this unique voice is that it will never stop seeking to be expressed. It will continue to keep pushing from the inside out, sometimes softly, and then perhaps a little bit more insistently. It behooves us to really listen for and to that inner voice. The world is waiting for our allowing. The third principle is collective work and responsibility. Collective work and responsibility. So there, I'm getting little whispers from the front. Aren't you supposed to do green? Well, I heard, so there's a different camps about this. Some say you light all the reds first and then the greens. Others say you light all the greens first and then all the reds. But no one says go back and forth, back and forth. So I'm just starting with the red. I have no idea. So this idea of collective work and responsibility, this principle invites us to build and to maintain community together, to do it together, and to take each other's problems on and solve them as we would solve our own. A sense of collective responsibility builds accountability and investment in our communities. We become more like stewards of our community. And it encourages us to view our successes and our failures as shared rather than individual. We are all members of many different communities, right? Our families, our friends, our workplace communities, our neighborhoods, and our spiritual centers, to name just a few. And we constantly move in and out of them depending upon the situations that we're in. For me, I believe that community is about growing and evolving with others. It's about being supported by others, about being inspired by others, about being raised up by others. Community isn't a luxury. It's something that we all need, not only to survive, but to thrive. I can't imagine living life without community. As human beings, we need a sense of belonging, and a sense of belonging is what connects us to many of the relationships and to many of the communities that we develop along the way. Belonging is this innate human desire to belong to something that is greater than we are. It is a primal, fundamental human need, much like the need for shelter or food or water. A sense of belonging is often crucial to a person's well-being. It improves our health, our happiness, and our motivation. As we see our lives through our connection with others, then we recognize that all people experience some times of difficulty, that all people experience some challenges. We recognize that we're not alone in these kinds of experiences. We're not alone as we spend our limited time here on earth. That we are more alike than we are different, that we share these kinds of experiences with each other, and in that there is great comfort. Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." So we are that small group of committed citizens. We are that small, connected community, responsible and accountable for everyone else in the community. The fourth principle is cooperative economics. Cooperative economics. Now, this principle invites us to build and maintain our own stores and our own businesses and to profit from them together. So when we maintain individual ownership and control of our businesses, but we also accept that our economies are cooperative, then businesses do their part to give back to the economy of the whole. And it just works out much better for everyone. What I believe is that it is God's nature to give. And since we were created in the image and likeness of God, then it's our nature to give. The path to cooperative economics lies in consciously choosing to give. Now, this includes being willing to share our lives, our time, our talent, our love, our light, and our treasure with everybody else, with all of the other people in our lives, because in truth, they don't belong to us anyway. All of those things are just flowing through us as part of us being part of the one infinite life. The spiritual practice of giving begins with that recognition that it is part of our nature to not only receive, but to also give. Our inner life deepens when we make a conscious plan to give. And through that giving, we actually experience the great satisfaction of being in that flow of life, of stepping into the flow of life, of being one with it, of being a great part of it. This is the law of giving and receiving. This is the law of circulation at work. It is only as we allow that divine current to flow through us and back out again that we really experience the fullness of life itself. The fifth principle is purpose. So the fifth principle is purpose, and this is to remind us to find purpose through the shared work of building community. If our daily lives only begin with an alarm clock, and then are only filled up with really mundane tasks throughout the day, and then only end up with us lying in bed watching Netflix at night, only to wake up and do the whole day over and over and over again ad nauseum, then the struggle to find purpose probably isn't new to us. We want something more. Our souls want something more. Reverend Chris Michaels says, "Deep within you is your soul's assignment. It was inscribed on your heart when you were created. It is the dream that you have always dreamt. It is the vision that you have secretly held within you. It is the thing that you are called to do, but may slightly fear doing. It is spirit alive in your soul, knowing what's possible for your life. It's our purpose. It's our calling. It's what we know deep in our heart and soul is ours to do. Each of us arrived on the planet imbued with a purpose. There is a perfect form of self-expression for each and every single one of us. Something that we are to do that no one else on the planet can do in exactly that same way. So if we don't express that, then it simply will not be expressed. What a shame. Now the invitation is to tap into that unique purpose and to bring it out into the world, to share it, to be it, to do it. Good things can happen when we search for meaning and purpose and then do what is ours to do within our communities. The sixth principle is creativity. Creativity. This principle invites us to do whatever we can do to leave our community more beautiful and more beneficial than when we first found it. President John F. Kennedy once challenged the American people, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. Now, this idea may have gotten lost somewhere along the way, but the sixth principle of Kwanza reminds us that it is up to each of us to find ways to use our gifts and talents, to step powerfully into our purpose, to uplift each other and our communities. The invitation here is to live within a worldview that says that we have come here to be, we have been created to be God's ambassadors on the planet, to be responsible to each other, to be responsible to all of God's manifestations, including the planet itself. Our worldview, our context for living, determines what we do and how we do it. So if we really want to be an uplifting presence, then we have to have a context that can support that. The invitation is to get in touch with our feelings and find out what it is that we would really like to do to serve. When we discover what really matters to us, what really expands our hearts and makes our souls sing, then our everyday actions, those things that we do every day, day in and day out, will actually serve others and the world in some really small ways, but some really big ways too. It really doesn't take much effort in order to make a dramatic difference in someone else's life. It doesn't take much at all. Sometimes it could just be a smile. We are at a time in our lives when we must come together in ways that are productive and inclusive and that inherently move the world forward in a positive way, and then to ask not only ourselves to do this, but to ask our neighbors to do it also. The seventh and final principle is faith. Now, for the African American people, this principle reminds them to place their faith in their parents, in their teachers, and in their community leaders, while also trusting the righteousness of their struggle. Now, while we may not share their struggle, having faith in each other and in our communities and even in our nation reinforces the sense of unity and community that are at the heart of Kwanza itself, is what really Kwanza is all about, this idea of unity and community. Ernest Holmes says, faith has been recognized as a power throughout the ages, whether it be faith in God, faith in one's fellow man, in oneself, or in what one is doing. Those who have great faith have great power. So in the general sense of the word, to have faith is to believe in something or someone, to really fully trust, to be so confident that we base everything we do on what we believe. For me, faith is always a spiritual conversation. Faith is a spiritual substance. And when we align with this spiritual substance that is within us, it communicates to us a certain inner knowing that what we are hoping for is actually already established, even though we have not yet seen any material evidence that it has happened. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not yet seen. To have faith means to be fully confident, fully persuaded, or fully convinced that something is going to happen. And not only is something going to happen, but we are going to love what happens. Fear is being just as fully confident, just as fully persuaded, and just as fully convinced that something is going to happen. The only difference is that we are fully confident, fully persuaded, and fully convinced that we are not going to like whatever happens. Faith is the ultimate source of power to affect the creation of the experiences of our lives, one way or the other. One way or the other, but it's completely powerless without our own divine choice to spark its movement, to spark its momentum. So, again, we have choice. Do we choose fear or do we choose faith? The bottom line is that all of Kwanza's 7 principles remind us that unity is a choice, to develop and use our own voice, to build and maintain communities together, and to find purpose through the shared work of building those communities. It reminds each of us that it is our responsibility to find ways to share our gifts with the collective, to do our part, and to give back to the economy of the whole, and to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that those with great faith have great power. And I don't know about everybody sitting here today, but I think it sounds like a really wonderful way to live our lives. And so it is. So it is. So I invite everyone to turn within. To allow ourselves to turn away from the world of form and to turn inward to that inner spark, that space and place that I call God, that is the very essence of peace, of joy, of creativity, of love, wisdom. I know that this power and presence is benevolent. I know that it is always available, always for me and never against me, an energy with no circumference and points of center everywhere. I know that I am one of those points. That right where I am, God is. And just as I know that this is my truth, I know that it is the truth of each and every person here today. We are all unique expressions of the divine. And it is from this place of unity that I speak these words about and for each of us today. Truly knowing that, like those that celebrate Kwanza on a regular basis, we too can step powerfully into these principles, can bring them into our lives in a way that enhances our own lives and the lives of those people around us. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are one. That unity is the fundamental truth of who we all are, individually and collectively. And that when we live our lives from that space, from our recognition that I am looking at the face of God, that everything simply works. I know that as we step powerfully into this idea of self-determination, we are able to, with ease and grace, find our voice, to stand up for ourselves, to define ourselves, to speak for ourselves, to let go of the need to have someone else tell us what to do or hold us back. With self-determination, we can fly. And I claim ease and grace for each of us around that. I know that this idea of collective work and responsibility and cooperative economics allows us all to thrive, for our businesses to all survive, for our businesses to all thrive as we work together to solve any challenges that come up and to work together to give back to the collective a little piece of that which we have taken away. I know that we all have a purpose, that we arrived imbued with that purpose, and I claim ease and grace for each of us around finding it, knowing that as we bring that purpose out into the world, as we share those gifts, that thing that no one else can do, exactly like we are, that we uplift everyone. I know that right where we are, creativity lives, that we are more than capable of choosing those things, those ways of being in the world that benefit the whole. And I claim faith for each of us. Not just faith in someone or something, but the faith of God. I claim that it flows through our bodies and is the thing that enters a room before us, that we lean into it in everything that we do. And I'm so grateful to know this truth and to speak these words. So grateful for the power of prayer, knowing that these words are loosed into a law that only ever says yes, that they are clothed in form even as they are spoken. And so I speak them and release them and allow God to be God. And I invite each of us to anchor this prayer for ourselves and for each other simply by saying, and so it is. And so it is. Amen.